Hello, Geshe everybody. Hello and welcome to the 23rd session now of our weekly virtual teachings by Venerable Geshe Lhakdor. Geshe Lhakdor, we would like to welcome you by thanking you profusely, really, for leading this journey. And I thank everybody for sharing this journey with us. And here's for more journey ahead. Thank you so much, Geshe. Geshe, please help us, guide us.
Everybody. It is wonderful to talk to all of you again. When we meet people, when we talk to people, if at all possible, it is important to think that I may be talking to this person for the last time, or I may be meeting this person for the last time. It is unsure whether we'll be able to talk to each other again or meet each other again. So therefore, I should be nice. I should make this meeting and talking a pleasant one. That's really important, to look with fresh eye, just like seeing a newly blossomed flower. When you see different people, people are in general, I was really thinking about that, and people are general, if you think about, irrespective of how human beings came into being, if you think about people, it's really amazing, the whole psychophysical aggregate, how human brain functions, and the complex, properties that is there in the human body, in the human mind, the sensitivity, the receptivity, the thinking power, and of all, of course, that's the most important thing. So there is really, really a lot to appreciate having born as a human being. And unfortunately, sometimes we don't understand the great many qualities that you have. You might focus on small problems, difficulties, and forget the bigger picture of who you are and what is your special feature. All these things you might forget, you see. So therefore, it's really, really important to appreciate this amazing human life. If you don't understand, then compare your human life with a mosquito or an earthworm or a cow or a dog, and then see which one has better facilities, better environment. So many advantages of having born as a human being. So that way you need to instill that kind of peace and happiness in your mind. And once you're able to develop that peaceful and happy mind, a happy mind can achieve many things. A happy mind can realize many objectives, important objectives. If your mind itself is distressed and not so happy, then it's not possible to achieve much, right? So therefore, your mental attitude, now gradually, not only, this is something said in Buddhism, now gradually the science are also coming closer and closer to the Buddhist, understanding of mind. Now, as I said earlier, now they are talking about neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity, I mentioned this earlier also. The more neuroplasticity means, the more you use the neuron pathways on different things, the more it becomes flexible, just like a road well traveled. The road is well traveled. Many people go there, the people take care of it, put new pavements, things like that. If very few people travel it, then gradually stones and dust and twigs and leaves and everything will collect. And then gradually the road will completely be covered and not fit for traveling. So therefore, in fact, now the science is saying you should really, not just think on one thing, but also learn different skills. So that in case, for example, if there is an accident and one of the part of your brain which does the most of the thinking, if that gets damaged, then still there are many other pathways which you can use. And if you don't have learned that skill, then they say that if one of the pathway which you have been mostly using, if that gets destroyed, then your mind, which is dependent on brain, may not function at all, right? But then the interesting thing with the Buddhist teaching is that the mind, especially the grosser levels of the minds, are dependent on the brain. But when you go to the subtle level of the mind, it becomes more or less independent from its dependence on any physical aggregate, including the brain. So this is something that still neuroscientists are exploring, but not trusting right now. It's not that easy to grasp, understand. So there's one thing we need to remember, right? So the main point is, whether you call it brain or mind, we have such an amazing capacity to know the reality, the most profound and subtle reality. And that's important. The other day I was reading a book which it says that if you don't, for example, understand the reality, then it is like a blind person who is not able to see the sunlight. When the blind person is not able to see the sunlight, it's not the fault of the sun. It's the fault of the person whose eye is not functioning, whose sight is not functioning. So therefore, we must develop this eye-like wisdom to see the reality, impermanence, suffering, interdependent origination, all aspects of truth you must learn. And also the encouraging thing, of course, on many teachings, we always say, oh, your mind is so habituated with the negative emotions that it's really difficult to come out. I said this also a few times. Of course, that is true. But on the other hand, the text also gives the explanation, like the example of a house which has always remained dark, having no light. Let us say for 1,000 years, the doors and windows are closed and the darkness there. But in order to remove this darkness, which has been there for 1,000 years and so forth, if you just light one lamp, this darkness collected over several thousand of years will go away. This is a very encouraging example. So in our case also, the only problem is we are not making enough effort to realize the suchness. Once you really make some effort through hearing, thinking, and meditation, and through that, if you are able to develop some insight or conviction towards the truth of impermanence, for example, your life will be completely transformed. A proper understanding of suffering, proper understanding of interdependent origination. Then the way you treat yourself, the way you treat other people, the way you relate to other people, it is clear that it will completely be changed. And then many of the ordinary stupid ways of life that we indulge in makes no sense at all. So ordinary way of life that we are living is really like the life of a person, whose mind is not functioning, right? The way of a mad person, right? In the case of mad person, he or she may be physically extremely ill and sick, but still will be like jumping around, laughing and saying, ha ha, he, who. And if you ask that person to go and take treatment and things like that, he would say, no, I'm absolutely fine. I'm absolutely perfect. He's not perfect. She's not perfect. But because of her lunacy or his madness, he's not able to understand that. So we are something like that. So in order to remove this lunacy, this madness, we can talk about this madness of the world in many, many aspects. We are suffering unnecessarily because of this lack of knowledge, ignorance, and madness. And that madness, that ignorance can be removed if you make a little bit effort to understand the reality of how we are all connected to each other, how delicately we are connected to the environment and things like that. So therefore, the one point that is repeatedly emphasized in the Buddhist teaching is that you must use your brain or mind and hear, think, and meditate on the reality. And through that understanding, through that perception, you'll be able to see what is good, what is not good, what must be adopted and what must be discarded. And then if you, in your real life, practice that, there will be total transformation, total transformation. maybe living in the same environment, same world, but because of your attitude, things will be completely different. So that is in our hand actually. But unfortunately, we are always, carried away or sidetracked by the small pleasures here and there, and unable to devote much time for the thing that will do that greater goodness, right? So therefore, we really need to, just like we make budget for our monthly expenditure or yearly expenditure. So similarly, we need to make some budget with how we are using our time and make sure that every day you recharge yourself with these positive qualities, right? Recharge your uh, torch of life so that you can use it when you go into the darkness of the ordinary life. So therefore, the only solution for any problem has to come from within oneself. That is the bitter truth. There's the bitter truth. Especially when you encounter difficulties, problems. Unless you are able to help yourself, there is not much point blaming other people, criticizing other people. That's not the solution. That's not the solution. So therefore, I consider myself fortunate to be able to read this text and explain a little bit to you. And you should also really see this as highly, highly important. And many of you are already acknowledging the benefit, which is good, and which has nothing to do with my, greatness of the teaching or things like that. It is the light and the preciousness of the teaching itself, which is radiating, through which we are all able to get benefit. Because these teachings are not talking for the benefit of one community, one society, one nation, but it's talking about benefiting all suffering people, benefiting all people who want happiness, right? So therefore, it's wonderful that we are now almost coming to the end of this text. We may have one more session. So next Friday will be the end of this teaching. So it is a great time to rejoice. But then don't leave it there. Try to read this text again and again. Right? Make it a part of your life. And the goodness of this text is the root text itself is really compact and very short. And read the root text. And whenever you are not clear, then again refer to some commentary or teachings of some other people and understand it. It's important, right? So therefore, now today, the topic that we are going to talk about is the seven wealth. So he uses the word wealth. There are many types of wealth. And all these types of wealth, here we are talking about the spiritual wealth. So all different types of spiritual wealth are now condensed into this seven wealth. You will remember right in the beginning, we discussed about this earlier also. The four deities and the seven teachings. The four deities and three teachings, right? Four deities and three teachings. Three teachings are the three Pitakas, and four deities, I've explained this to you. Achala, Buddha, Tara, Avalokiteshvara. We discussed this earlier. So like that, within the teaching, here we are talking about the seven wealth, right? So the seven wealth here, again, as usual, discussion takes place between Domtamba and Atisha. And then Domtamba actually says that you are the real Manjushri, in whose mind the meaning of the profound and the vast, everything is clear to your mind. And just as the teaching on the profound and the vast is absolutely crystal clear to your mind, you also explained it in a crystal clear form to the students also. And because of receiving this teaching, we are so elated. We are so happy as if we have achieved a very high spiritual level. And you have also repeated your teaching many times so that students can understand. So therefore, now he makes a request, Trungpa makes a request by saying that since we have now enjoyed this, feast of Dharma teaching, now I would request you to give teaching on the wealth. So to this, Atisha starts teaching the seven wealth, out of which the first is faith. And he tells this to Trungpa by saying that faith is really one which, which collects and which attracts everybody, and which is able to control everybody. And through faith, one can even kind of control or attract even the superior beings. And thereby, there's no need to talk about attracting ordinary people. So that's what I'm talking about, There's so many great qualities that we can talk about. So out of these many great virtuous qualities, even if you practice and develop one properly, that's what I was saying, the transformation that will take place, because all these great qualities are related to each other, right? So now faith basically means, faith is basically liking. Liking. You imagine when you like somebody, especially when you love somebody, your mind becomes completely clear. Completely clear. And because of that liking inside, even the face of that person looks different, looks attractive, looks nice. You want to talk to that person, you want to be closer to that person, or if it is a flower, you want to touch that flower, smell it, and things like that, right? So faith is the one which removes the mental turbidity, mental sediments, or mental turbidity, right? So that's very important. Unless your mind is completely open and clear, just like pure water, it will not become receptive for higher practices or for teachings. So it must be very, very clear. I had earlier explained the three types of faith, so I'm not going to repeat it again. But then after that, I also explained about the two types of faith. The faith of those people whose mind is not very sharp, and faith of people whose mind is very sharp. So when we follow the Mahayana teaching, we must follow the system of the Mahayana, which is based on reasoning. You develop certain faith, but it is based on reasoning. So reason and faith must go together. If you want to understand this more, then read the first chapter of Nagarjuna's Precious Garland, which is Holiness recently taught, I think, few times, in order to actualize human rebirth, in order to actualize nirvana, in order to actualize Buddhahood. He clearly says you need faith and wisdom, out of which what is really important is wisdom, but the one which goes first is faith. So faith is the precursor for development of all qualities, positive qualities. As I said, it makes your mind clear and receptive. When your mind is receptive and clear, it's ready to attract all kind of qualities, right? So therefore, that's why he's saying that it's a quality which attracts everybody. And with the pure faith, with pure faith, attachment and hatred will be destroyed. Faith means it's really like appreciation. It is like the sun. It's like the sun which gives the light. It's really like a line thrown on which the enlightened beings sit. And faith is also like a lotus flower which is blossoming. And it's faith that you respect all the superior beings. And it's faith through which you are able to enrich yourself with the richness of the peace and well-being of the superior beings. So therefore, he again tells Dhamma, therefore, the most supreme of all the wealth is faith. If you don't have faith, then you are like a dog, you are like a crow, you are like a pig. Without faith, you will not like what you should like. You will not love what you should like, but you will love which you should not love. You will like something which you should not like. That's what ordinary people do. For precious teachings, we don't pay attention. We don't like, we don't love. We don't even pay attention. For stupid things, we will be the first ones to reach there. Right? That's ordinary way of life. So it's just opposite. It's just opposite. Right? If you don't have the faith. Faith is like the light of a lamp. The light of a lamp makes oneself luminous and also others luminous. It will shine you and shine others. It will remove darkness. And by removing the darkness, you're able to see what is in their place, in the house. You're able to see where your cup is, where your book is, with the light. So it's like that. And faith, having faith is also really like relishing a fruit that you long, that you want to enjoy, right? So therefore, you must stabilize your faith. So having explained this, then Domdamba again requests Atisha by saying that, yes, there are 7 wealth, which you have now spoken about the first wealth. So can you explain the rest, the 6, right? So then Atisha explains this by saying that one which is really the foundation and the one which is like endless treasure, however much you use, it will never come to an end. And whenever you need, it will be there with you, is practice of morality. Practice of morality. Because morality is really like the foundation of all the good things that you want to practice. It's like a well-cultivated field in which you can grow all kind of crops. You'll remember that the Sanskrit, equivalent word for morality, which is shil. Shil means something like coolness. So practice of morality means avoiding negative deeds, helping others, collecting virtuous qualities. As I mentioned earlier, this word morality or discipline has no connotation of observing some sense of discipline which is imposed upon you, which you unwillingly do it. No, there's no such connotation. Practice of morality is just for your benefit, that you do the good things, don't do the bad things, help others. So it's a very, very open kind of explanation, wide kind of explanation, right? So as I was saying, when you do these 3 things, avoiding the negative deeds, collecting the good deeds, helping others, then your mind naturally will be cool and free, completely clean, right? So when your mind is calm and peaceful and clean, then that is like a field where you can cultivate all the crops. Meaning that now, because of your mind is peaceful and calm, you can undertake concentration, you can develop wisdom, you can analyze things, you can develop compassion, you can develop love, everything. Just like this earth is the support for everything that is existing on it. Animate beings, inanimate beings. So similarly, morality is the foundation for all great practices, right? So basically means not harming others and helping others. It's extremely, extremely important, right? So it's really like the so-called water, which poses 8 different features. There is the special water called, the one with 8 features, which means it is pure and cool, light, without turbidity and things like that. And it is also like a medicinal tree. A medicinal tree produces medicinal fruits. And moral practice is really like vast area where everybody can travel with peace and happiness. And it is the only path which is free from contaminations. And by cultivating that morality, the fruit is obtaining good human rebirth, liberation, and so forth. So therefore, this is again second very important wealth, without which you cannot really move forward in your spiritual practice. And it is based on the practice of morality that you are able to achieve higher spiritual grounds and then become an Arya, a superior being. So when you have that moral practice, then you are like a beautiful garden with all the beautiful flowers. You see, I mean, look at the example. You see, human beings, through their thinking, through their physical gesture, they can be the most beautiful flower, right? Because we have this motivation, with the gesture of your eye, with the gesture of your speech, with the gesture of your hand, with the gesture of your whole facial and physical expression, you can create so much happiness. I mean, look at a small, child. Everybody wants to touch and hug that child. Why? Because you can see this innocence in the child, purity in the child, the naturalness of that child. But gradually, with some kind of indoctrination, with the so-called education, we will gradually lose that humanness, that naturalness, and we come up with a second kind of mask, based on our education and things like that, and we hide the reality. In society, there are so many things that you can do, you cannot do. People say this, she will say this. There's your freedom is curtailed, you see, even in the ordinary society. Then in a more kind of higher circle, then you have this government rules, and then the many stupid leaders, they will completely take away or curtail your freedom, unfortunately. So we are not able to shine out our real humanness, because we are so much conditioned by the environment. Our very identity is lost. So therefore, in order to rediscover who you are, to rediscover your uniqueness, you need to think, what is reality? What is my real identity? What is so special about human life? We need to think about this. I mean, look at the difference between you and a rock, right? The other objects like a rock or even a flower, which maybe look beautiful, but it does not have that capacity to cultivate all these great inner qualities, right? Whereas human beings with that wonderful brain and mind, we have this great capacity to discover, understand our potential. When we talk about our potential, we have this potential that has the capacity to develop this limitless, amazing qualities, including actualizing Buddhahood. We have this wonderful quality. So that's why in many, if you read about this topic on the Buddha nature, so in Buddhism we say all not only just human beings, all sentient beings have this Buddha nature, which means the capacity to flourish. Capacity to flourish. Therefore, I have been saying that the very concept of education must be a process by which we are able to flourish and be happy and be satisfied, not just reading, writing, and doing some mathematics, right? So we have that capacity, but that capacity, as is explained in Sutra Alamkara and Uttara Tantra by Maitreya, and that potential is right now remain dormant and hidden, just like a butter lamp in a pot, a sealed pot or something like that. So inside there is a lamp, but you cannot see it outside because it is closed in a pot. Or just like a treasure hidden deep down in the ground, earth. The treasure is there, but we have no idea, right? Right? So there are many examples are given in those texts. So therefore, it is important to go deeper and understand this capacity to develop these qualities like faith, morality, and so forth. Right? So therefore, this has been compared to a beautiful garden. And so therefore, you must guard this moral practice of morality similar to your life. Similar to your life. Because if you have the morality, moral practice, you will be away from all kinds of poverty, especially spiritual poverty, right? Spiritual poverty. I mean, imagine if you are somebody. So therefore, the Buddha is said to have said that even if the whole world gets problem of not able to find adequate food and not enough land to cultivate, and in fact, an example is given by saying that even if it turns out that the availability of the land is so difficult that the people have to cultivate the land as big as the nail of the finger. I mean, imagine what will you cultivate there, So even if the ordinary life reaches to such a difficult stage, still my followers, especially my monks and nuns followers, will not have difficulty getting their food. Provided if you have properly observed that morality. You see, not just monks and nuns, even ordinary people, if you are genuinely, in and out gentleman, kind, compassionate, people will be completely attracted to that person and seek guidance, things like that, right? Just like His Holiness Dalai Lama, from every quarter of the people, that people are dying to come and see His Holiness with a lot of effort and expenditure and things like that. Because you are able to at least get some glimpse of the importance of those inner qualities, right? I remember well that once His Holiness was giving Kala Chakra in Jispa, which is in the same state where I'm living, Lahore, Spiti, as we say. So in Lahore, there is a place called Jispa. So there His Holiness gave Kala Chakra initiation. So one day when in the morning His Holiness was doing the Kala Chakra, preparation, one of the security guard came to me and said, Geshe, there is a lady who has some question. Can you please meet her? So I went to meet her, and I found her very puzzled and confused, Then in a kind of trembling voice, she asked me that I am a poor lady, don't have much money, but my master said that you must go and receive the Kala Chakra. Now all the 3-4 preliminary teachings have been done. And it was almost, I think, I don't remember exactly, but I think third day of Kala Chakra initiation or something like that. So the actual Kala Chakra initiation also now nearly over. I have come all the way. So now I am not sure what I have received, what I have got. Really, she was concerned. She was kind of with a trembling voice, as I said. Then I asked her, did you listen to the teaching properly? She said, yes. Did you get something, special advice which you've never heard before? She said, yes. Then I said, this you won't get anywhere. This is precious. So you got something which will help you throughout your life. So these inner qualities are like that. If you retain some of these inner qualities, they will be there whenever you have difficulty. They will say, yes, sir, I'm here. What can I do for you? Right? So therefore, he's saying here that this practice of morality is like a wealth without which you can't do, right? It's like a garden. It's your life. And if you have that, you will not suffer from any deprivation. And if you have that, your treasure will be full of wealth. The ordinary treasure of gold, of silver, of things like that. I mean, Tibet used to have all that. The external material wealth. Imagine the wealth of the Tibet. Tibet is basically a country of so many minerals, including uranium. But Tibetans never explored this, excavated this, believing that what is there in the earth does not belong only to the human beings. It also has other owners, different spirits. So we used to believe that. So therefore, we never try to disturb, pollute, and excavate the minerals and pollute the water and things like that. So they were all there. So later, when we were invaded by the Chinese, they are now kind of, in a very crazy way, excavating and destroying everything. So they found hundreds of different minerals, including gold, silver, uranium, I'm saying, right? So anyway, what I'm saying is Tibet used to have that, but these are all lost now. But the spiritual wealth that we had, the spiritual wealth that His Holiness had, it is there, ever ready to help us, benefit us, wherever we go. Wherever we go, right? So these inner spiritual qualities are your constant, unfailing friend. So therefore, we must cultivate these inner qualities like morality. And then also he says, but having just mere faith, mere morality, this practice is also in the lower vehicles, in the practice of Sarvakas and Patika Buddhas. But among those practitioners, it will be difficult to find a practitioner who is able to just give up the complete kingdom or even sacrifice one's son and daughter, one's head and hand, and without expecting anything back. Such practice is difficult. So therefore, we must follow the practice found in Mahayana, where you give up everything. So that is the third wealth, which is giving, So giving without attachment, giving without expecting anything in return. So therefore, practice of generosity and giving is another important wealth. And with the practice of giving, there are three types of giving. One is giving material wealth to alleviate the poverty of other people. Then giving Dharma teaching or advices, which shows the supreme path, and then giving fearlessness. So giving is not just giving material object, but helping other people alleviate, remove their fear. So that is also giving. So this is another unsurpassing supreme wealth. So that is the third wealth. Now, even if you have faith, even if you guard your morality, even if you practice giving, if you do not seek the understanding of the profound and vast teachings, in other words, if you don't listen to the teaching, if you don't hear the teaching which is really like an ocean, then you might, in the intermediate state, fall down to lower states, because you will not know what is the path, what is the ground, things like that. The path that takes you to the Buddhahood. And if you don't have that vast knowledge that comes from hearing, thinking, you can be easily duped by superficial attractions, and especially there are negative forces among non-human beings, among human beings, who can dupe you intentionally sometimes unintentionally. The unintentional distractions are like your parents, your wealth, your followers, your efforts, your students, your friends, your brothers, sisters, right? So in that form, because of your attachment to them, right, you might get distracted. So therefore, in order to able to make a distinction between the fault and the qualities, it is important to have this wealth of listening. Knowledge that comes through study is extremely important. And because from hearing or from listening, then comes contemplation. From there, then comes meditation. From there, then comes the higher stages of the path. So therefore, identifying and understanding everything is really like a doctor, a physician. For a physician, it's important for the doctor to know all the details of different types of plants or medicines and so forth. So therefore, you must listen the great teachings of the Kadamba instruction, which is the best method to get enlightened. So as long as you live, you must nourish yourself by this food of listening to the teaching. So that is the fourth wealth. Now, even if you have this 4 types of wealth, but if you have no sense of shame and no sense of concern for others, so this sense of shame and sense of concern for others, these are really like clothes that you wear, right? When you wear clothes, then you look nice. But if you go naked, it doesn't look nice. People might make fun of you. So therefore, it's really like covering your body with elegant, clothes. So you must have. You will recall last time I said that Nagarjuna also, in his, I think, Ratnavali, he says the world is sustained by 2 qualities. And that is sense of shame and sense of concern for others. That means not engaging in negative deeds because of concern for oneself, who you are, that this is not good for me to do. Or you refrain from doing negative things by saying, this is disgrace to my teacher, to my parents, and things like that. So if you have this concern, especially in terms of Bodhisattva practice, if we try to summarize all the practices for the Bodhisattva, then really in the Shiksha Samuchaya and many texts, it says that you need to do one practice. That one practice is, whenever you are about to do something, you should see whether this will make others unhappy or not. Right? So not engaging in any deeds by which people will lose faith in you. That should not be done. So therefore, practice of sense of shame and concern for others is, of course, extremely important. Because if you don't have this practice of sense of shame and concern for others, then even among the worldly beings, you will be considered as a worse kind of person, and you will be defamed and you will be laughed at. For example, let us say if you are somebody who doesn't respect your father as your father, who does not respect your mother as your mother, who does not respect the senior people, you see, that's very dangerous, especially in these days, right? Especially this question of seniority. Now in the name of freedom, everybody thinks, everybody is equal. Yes, everybody is equal in one sense, but that does not mean that there is no sense of seniority, respect for others. People like your parents who have been very kind to you, respect them. People like your teachers from whom you received instructions and guidance, respect to them. It's extremely important, right? So if you lose that sense of respect, then that is unfortunately very sad. And when you don't have this sense of shame and concern for others, then you engage in stealing and robbing and exploitation and flattery and hypocrisy and idle gossip and divisiveness. So you lead a life which is really like crazy. And with such kind of life, the male, if you are male, if you are man, you will bring disgrace to the society of men. If you are women, you will bring disgrace to the society of women, right? So therefore, you must have this sense of shame and concern for others. And if you don't have that, you will cheat your parents. You will not repay them with kindness. You will deceive even those people who had looked after you, and so forth. And if you don't have that sense of shame and concern for others, even if you are termed as a religious practitioner, you will end up discouraging or bringing sadness in the mind of your teacher, your efforts, and you will also develop this mental enmity with your spiritual brothers and sisters. You see, for example, even in the case of teacher, if I am giving a teaching and then I found some another person who is really much better than my teaching, and if I heard that, instead of appreciating that, I might develop jealousy, and I might then start saying something, yeah, he's kind of very good in saying things, but he's, that kind of, to show that I'm better than that person, you see. So even in the case of somebody who is called a spiritual practitioner, spiritual teacher, all this will be there if you don't have this sense of shame and concern for others. Right? So these two are related. If you don't have sense of shame, you will also have no concern for others. And then what the life you will lead will be a hypocritical life. And you will lead a life which is basically based on wrong livelihood. Now today, unfortunately, if you really seek very carefully, people are ready to do everything for money. That means wrong livelihood in big cities. People are ready to sell everything, including their value, human value, you see. In a way, we can say that everything has a value, but human being itself has now no value, unfortunately. So that is the situation, because you don't have that sense of shame and concern for others. And if you have that, then you will give up this seven wealth, and you will work hard to get those which is not wealth. And when you don't practice any of this, religious teachings, you don't feel ashamed, right? But if you do a little bit of this practice, you feel ashamed, especially this is true with young people. They might think, oh, I'm so modernized, in look and, things like that. So why should I practice spirituality, which is for elderly people, or which is, obsolete, ancient way of practice? We think like that, you see. This reminds me the story of Buddha's encounter with, I think Atisha or Buddha, I don't remember. He talks to a 70-year-old man, saying that, how old are you? He said, 70. No, you're not 70. You're like a child or something like that. So then this old man said, no, I'm 70. No, I'm not talking about your physical age. I'm talking about your mental level. So mental level, you are still like a child, you see. So it's like that, you see. If you don't train your mind then to those objects in which you should not have shame, you have shame, right? So we lead a life just opposite. So that's why I really encourage, I feel very happy when I see young people doing spiritual practice, because you can be a great influence for other, people with similar age. Because if they listen to someone like me, they might, oh, he's old, therefore he's saying things like that. But it's irrelevant for me because I'm so smart and so young, things like that. Right? So that is having sense of shame is the fifth wealth, and then sense of concern for others is the sixth wealth, and the seventh wealth is the wealth of wisdom, and we should highly cherish it, because if you possess that supreme wisdom, then you will be a learned person to every subject. If you have that supreme wisdom, all the good teachings will be there with you. And it's this fire of wisdom which can burn all the hindrances and obscurations. So therefore, the wealth of wisdom is the supreme wealth among all other wealth. So therefore, if you have that wisdom, you will be really good in fulfilling the twin purposes, one's own purpose and purpose of other sentient beings. All right? And then if you have wisdom, you will also have skillfulness. If you have wisdom, you will also guard morality. If you have wisdom, you will also practice giving. If you have wisdom, you will also seek hearing. If you have wisdom, you will also decorate yourself with sense of shame and the sense of concern for others. You will also have the power of patience, and you will also have the power of effort, and you will also have the practice of one point in concentration. So if you have this wisdom, you will really become a rich man in everything. And so these are the seven wealth, and I'm explaining this wealth to you with much love and affection. So therefore, you should not declare it in the marketplace, meaning that you should not just randomly, without any regard, share it to people who are not interested, right? In that way. This is not a tantric teaching, but for people who are totally against it, there's no point at that level to try to share this to those others. So therefore, in the root text also it says that don't share it to non-humans. So that is basically the meaning. Because if you share it to non-humans or people who are not interested in it, then their mind will be agitated, their mind will be disturbed, right? And they will even end up bloating something to bring disrepute in you, right? So therefore, you should check carefully to whom you should share it and to whom you should not share it. Okay, that's all lives. Oh yeah. So in short, we should practice in accordance with the three Pitakas. So all these people, who is a fit disciple to share all this teaching is people who have this practice of concentration, wisdom, and practice of morality. But the people who have turned their back against such teaching, then they are basically kind of ostracized from people. So they are really like a wild animal. A wild animal, what they do? Wild animal, for their temporary, alleviating their hunger, they will just seek food. Or like birds, who are flying from one tree to another tree, merely seeking food. We are human beings. We are not like those wild animals or birds whose main aim is only to get food, right? But people who have, less greed, who are contented, who have practice of morality, then these teachings should be shared. So in short, we should understand the teaching through the threefold practices: listening, contemplation, and meditation. In other words, you should study a particular subject in such a thorough and detailed manner that you are able to precisely understand the real meaning. not just a superficial understanding. Because the very purpose of listening and then especially thinking is to precisely penetrate into the ultimate meaning and develop conviction. And once you are able to do that, then get habituated with that, which means meditation, right? And the purpose of doing so is to help you exaggerate and defame things. Normally, merely on the hearsay, there some people are saying this, some people are doing this. Based on the hearsay, you either bring the news out of proportion, you exaggerate it, or you would denigrate it. So you fall into one of the extremes. And that is against the mainline practice. So therefore, unless you undertake wholehearted, one-pointed, practice, it is difficult to develop all those higher qualities like divine eye or divine clairvoyance, right? And if you don't have this, then you will become, an unruly, wild kind of practitioner who doesn't have that understanding, but you pretend you are somebody who has that understanding, and then without understanding the profound nature of the deities, profound nature of the shunyata and so forth, and because you have not seen, because you have not understood, therefore you will say, God, the Buddha doesn't exist, Manjushri does not exist, Avalokiteshvara doesn't exist, right? There are many, many things which you don't understand straight away. Because of your not having seen or heard, doesn't mean things don't exist. Even in this mundane world, there are so many things which you don't know, right? So many things. So you're not being able to know it doesn't mean they don't exist. So don't, quickly jump to the conclusion and say things don't exist. Just like the communists are saying, right? Then also during the teaching, Atisha also says that from a more purified view, Domdamba should also not be seen as a Domdamba, but he should be seen as an Avalokiteshvara. He's the real Avalokiteshvara. And we believe His Holiness the Dalai Lama is a manifestation of Avalokiteshvara, therefore manifestation of Domdamba also, right? So therefore he says that now I've given all these teachings to you, Domdamba, just like a nail being hit properly, right? So don't defame, don't denigrate, don't exaggerate. And this question answer dialogue that we had should not be proclaimed to others who have no faith, because we call these teachings as gem, Bodhisattva Garland of gems. So you should not, give this gem, precious gem, to the enemy, right? And so therefore this discussion, this dialogue should not be propagated to among bad people, bad-mannered people who are not ready. Of course, we must try to help everybody, but we can help them only gradually, not at one go. And then he also kind of gives prophecy by saying that now from henceforth, 1 year, after 1 year and half month, I'm called to come to the feet of Maitreya. So probably after 1 year and half month, Atisha was going to pass away. So therefore, Domdamba, you should take this supreme attainment, and you must actualize your secure food. Even if you develop very special inner qualities by which you are able to pulverize the big mountain. Even if you have that power to, bring the whole mountain into dust, you have so much powerful. But unless you are able to liberate and free these suffering sentient beings, that power has no meaning, right? So the purpose of all this teaching is to benefit others. And then they also seek the support of some of the guardian deities like the Temachuni, the 12 sisters, guardian deities, right? Then finally gives a short explanation about the 6-syllable mantra. And then finally, Dumdamba, as usual, summarizes it by saying that, yes, we had a great discussion, but if I summarize it, then it can be summarized into this 7 wealth: the wealth of faith, wealth of morality, the wealth of consideration for others, and feeling of shame, the wealth of hearing, and the wealth of giving, and the wealth of wisdom are the 7 wealth. These aspects of wealth are the 7 inexhaustible treasure and should not be related to the non-human beings. So that completes this chapter 22. Okay? So exactly 7. So let us see whether there are some questions.
Yes, so this is Chinnan, Gishla. Thank you so much, Gishla. We already have people in line for the questions. Jackie, please go ahead.
Thank you so much for your precious teachings. I'm glad there's one more class. I was wondering, this isn't related today, but I've heard the phrase that emptiness and dependent origination are 2 sides of the same coin. Yeah. I know you can't answer this in like 5 minutes, but if you could try, please.
Sure. So here, what you need to understand. I'm glad that you asked this very pertinent, important question. So when we say emptiness and interdependent origination are the 2 sides of the same coin, what we need to understand is that when we say emptiness, we are not talking about nothingness. That's the first thing we need to understand. So emptiness means empty of independent existence. Why? Because if you look at how things exist, there are only 2 ways of existence. Either things should exist dependently or things should exist interdependently. Sorry, independently. Independently or dependently. So dependent existence and independent existence are mutually exclusive. It has to be just one of the 2. Cannot be both or cannot be something, neither of the 2. Either they should exist dependently or they should exist independently. Now, when we analyze whether things exist dependently or independently, we realize that things exist dependently. Because anything that is existing is either dependent on causes and conditions, or dependent on designation, or dependent on its parts and whole and things like that. So because of that, now we say things exist dependently, therefore there is no independent existence. So emptiness means empty of independent existence. Clear? Aha. Because things exist, they exist dependently. Therefore, the other side of the coin is they don't exist independently. So emptiness means empty of independent existence. Okay?
Yeah, thank you. Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So last week you mentioned how, or a couple of weeks ago, you mentioned how Milarepa was kind of running away from people. How did he then practice bodhicitta if he wasn't around people?
Bodhicitta must be cultivated in the mind.
But in terms of practice, so okay.
Bodhicitta must be cultivated in the mind. And he already had a lot of dealings with people.
Yeah.
And so much suffering. Right? So, you know, this reminds me a story that I have actually seen, that in the very initial stage, when I was in the monastery, the Institute of Buddhist Dialectics, when it just got started, so after 2-3 years, we were all very enthusiastic to study Dharma. And some of the senior students are so enthusiastic that they really want to move high into the mountain and do retreat and become like almost like Milarepa. Some of them, in fact, went to our teacher, Geshe Lhakdor, saying that we want to move into the mountain. Then my teacher, Geshe Lhakdor, rebuked them, scolded them by saying, it's easy to move to the mountain, but what are you going to do in the mountain? If you simply physically move into the mountain, then mentally just keep on thinking about the city or people in the valley, then that will be the worst scenario. So therefore, first you should study properly and have something to meditate and then go into the mountain, you see. So Milarepa really has all those experiences and things like that. Yeah.
Thank you, Gisela. Thank you, Jackie. Next, we have Natasha. Hi, Natasha. I've sent you a mute request.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gisela. Today we have, again, 3 questions from the Russian audience. And the first one is, Buddhism says that we should tame our mind.
Yes.
Can we say that the conceptual mind itself is the cause of samsara?
Yes.
And should the conceptual mind be dissolved to discover the non-dual emptiness?
Yes, yes, true. That is true. Because whether you call it conceptual mind or discursive thought, there's a teaching, a line of teaching in Atisha's Lemma of the Path to Enlightenment, where he cites a quotation by saying that the conception is great ignorance. It is this conception which throws you or projects you into the cycle of existence. But if you remain in the meditative stabilization of non-conceptuality, then you are able to transcend ignorance and actualize enlightenment. Yes, true. So therefore you must, conception means a kind of mental fabrication. Like, so there are so many conceptions of men, of women, of tree, of food, of clothing. You know, with conception, we are primarily living in the conventional truth, the conventional world. And with this host of conceptions, we get stuck with this multifarious aspects. So therefore, you need to come out of this conception and develop this non-conceptuality of realizing shunyata, which is really like, as I said, understanding the space where there is no obstruction, no hindrance, right? Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. The second question is how we should meditate on the emptiness of our personality.
Now your personality or your person, basically, if you are somebody called Gorbachev, then you should see from the top of your head to the sole of your feet, where is this man with such and such name? What you are seeing is your physical body. It's not yourself. Because normally you say, this is my body, which means the one who says my body, the owner, the I, is something different. Similarly, mentally, I'm not very happy today. So you're also saying your mind is not yourself. So your body and your mind belongs to you, but they are not you. So where is this I? Right? So when you search in this way, then you will come to the conclusion, like anything else, not just I, like anything else, you will come to the conclusion. When you try to locate the basis of designation, you will never be able to locate it and pinpoint it as something having inherent independent existence. Right? So therefore, you will be able to understand that things are just designation, mental designation, imputation. Right?
And
So that will be quite kind of shattering experience. You see, there's a story of somebody meditating on shunyata, and then after a while, he lost his kind of identity, and then he really had to pull his rope. Where am I? He got so jolted and scared. You see, so that will happen, because that will happen not because of understanding of emptiness itself, but because of our strong grasping to something solid, concrete, having independent existence, right? But if you understand that things are just designation, things function based on designation, I am Lhakdor now. You can be Lhakdor also, provided if this name has been given to you, everybody can be Lhakdor, you see. It's clear that it's just designation, you see, right? And why you need the designation? You need the designation so that, everything does not get, mixed. Right? So in order to separate us from each other, we have these names, that's it.
Okay, and the last question is, sometimes people within the society are ashamed of different things. For example, someone can be fat or thin, beautiful or ugly, successful or not, etc. So is it that the shame should have morality as a basis?
Yes.
And not the opinion of society?
Yeah, this is a morality because of its relation to the society, right? Because of it is, influence and effect in the society, right? But what is important is that you should not be doing anything that is improper and harmful to yourself, to others. That's the purpose of having shame and having consideration for others. But this does not mean to say that you should dance at the tune of the demands of the society. You should not become a puppet to the society, right? So now this is like, you need to do a very fine balance. One, ordinary people are still ordinary. You can't expect them react to you or behave with you as enlightened beings. They'll continue to behave in the normal, ordinary way, right? So if you have some understanding, don't get shocked and surprised with how they do. So as much as possible, not to displease them, adjust to them. Don't pretend that, oh, you are stupid, you are behaving like this, but I'm enlightened, this should not be like this. Of course, we cannot give a sermon or a teaching like that, people who are not ready, as we already discussed, you see. But you should, as much as possible, make a sensible adjustment with other people. But this does not mean to say that you should throw your important spiritual practices into the water. You must maintain your independence. In the true sense of the term, independence. Buddhist practice is really for getting that freedom. We talk about nirvana as ultimate state of freedom, independence. So in order to reach that ultimate state of freedom, independence in the form of nirvana enlightenment, we must learn, while adjusting a little bit to the other people's needs, but don't sell your soul, don't sell your spirit to the needs, dictates of other people. You must, deep down, you must have that conviction and faith in the good things that you're doing and continue to do it and practice it, irrespective of what other people are saying. Because at the end of the day, when we talk about the truth, it's not a question of majority or democracy. That's very important to understand. Otherwise, people might say, oh, I have to do this because everybody is doing. That's a very stupid comment. Because if everybody is jumping from the 9th floor and committing suicide, you will not do that, right? So therefore, don't just say, follow other people, everybody is doing, but you should use your, sense of judgment and discrimination. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, so Geshe-la, thank you so much. Thank you, Natasha. So that was the last question for this session, Geshe-la. And before we let you go, I cannot really stop myself, like somebody else had mentioned to you in that email, that how profoundly grateful we are, how profoundly fortunate we are that we get to have these teachings. And it's not just receiving the teachings, but getting to have this experience of having you here, your presence here, that presence of this assembly, and then listening to these teachings from your own words, from your own voice. Thank you so much, Geshe-la. We hope we're all able to listen properly and, more importantly, practice them. Thank you so much. And we look forward to the next session, but not look forward to the next session ending. Thank you so much, Geshe-la. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.